we will take advantage of an innovation or let's say even a hack where our team has the understanding, has the know-how, will develop something really cool and unique.
Everyone wants to keep their secret sauce, kind of like, okay, it's our special hack or whatever, and we don't want to share it.
It doesn't hurt when you can share that message and get that reach out there.
Hey, awesome people! Welcome to Bootstrap Stories, the only podcast where founders of bootstrap companies share in all transparency the ups and downs of their journey. Starting a business comes hand in hand with loneliness, the pressure of not being successful, and overall, lots of challenges. After meeting with hundreds of entrepreneurs in the past years, I figured out that we all have struggles and make lots of mistakes when building a business. But the truth is that most people are afraid to share this publicly. That's what motivated me to start this podcast, to show that we're all on the same journey, facing the same struggles, and to give energy to all entrepreneurs worldwide to continue their adventure. Even if sometimes it can be really challenging and we often feel like giving up, in the end, it's all worth it.
My guest for this episode is Troy Johnston, co-founder and CEO of Seller.Tools. Hey, Troy, it's a pleasure to have you on the Bootstrap Stories podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for accepting the invite. Before jumping into our discussion, I just want to give a short idea about how we're going to discuss and what we're going to discuss next. So in the first part of the episode, I really want to focus on the strategies that help you to grow to 7 figures with your SaaS and being fully bootstrapped. After that, I want to dig into that myth of overnight success. It takes a lot of work to get to where you've been. So I want to speak also about the challenges and hard times as a founder. And in the last part, I really want to find out what have been your learnings in the last 5 years of growing Seller.Tools. Sounds good?
Wonderful. Yeah, sounds great.
Awesome. So can you maybe tell me a little bit more about Seller.Tools? What pain does it solve and who is kind of like your ideal customer?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Seller.Tools, we're an all-in-one suite of tools for Amazon FBA sellers and brands. So it covers a pretty wide array of solutions from keyword research to listing optimization to competitive analysis. But ultimately, what we strive to achieve as an outcome for our customers and users is getting more visible and generating more revenue on Amazon. And then our suite of tools and our Chrome extension, there's sort of two complementary tools there that help to achieve that outcome.
Okay, and so if I'm trying to understand this correctly, you have several tools that you are selling. Is this part of a similar package or is it things that people can purchase separately?
Yeah, right now it's sort of tiered price and plans based on the level of access. So as an example, for FBA brands, they'll manage what is referred to as like seller central accounts. This is where they manage their FBA business and facilitate sending in inventory and managing their listings. And so we will set a threshold where, let's say, 5 seller central accounts will be on a certain tier plan, and then we'll kind of graduate from there with the aim and the strategy being kind of meeting those brands where they're at in their business.
Nice. So you started the business in 2016, if I remember correctly, and now basically what's kind of your ARR range and people, a number of people in the team?
Yeah. So it really and we don't really have I would say a very hard start date for Seller.Tools of like this is the inception, because a little background and story is Seller.Tools was started by myself and my other 2 co-founders. And really the initial tools that were coming together were built out by my co-founder and partner, Brendan Morris, who was developing solutions for his own FBA branded business. He had a very small team, was looking for tools to automate some of the core and key functions. And so that was the starting place. And then our other business partner, Tade, joined him to start to add a little bit more stability, a little bit more sophistication, and the technical know-how to really start creating that foundation. And so that was roughly in 2015 as a lot of this was taking place. And then I joined the team as the kind of the final founder when it was the idea of, okay, now that some of these pieces are coming together, how do we think about impacting the larger community and clarifying the value prop and setting more of a SaaS foundation. And then, yeah, that was really when things started to kick off and formalize a little bit more. So it was this very fluid, what I would say, kind of scratching our own itch, because all three of us were sellers ourselves. So we all had brands at this point in time, or were in the process of having our brands acquired. And so fortunately, we had a lot of understanding of what was going to give us an advantage, what sort of unique data did we want to tap into, how did it empower some of our workflows. But then we also, we're also running those other businesses while we were building our SaaS and building Seller.Tools. So yeah, that was sort of the fluid foundation, and the true sort of inception really happened over that span of time. And I'm sorry, what were some of the other questions?
So that's really interesting, and I think starting, with your own needs whenever you want to launch a business is extremely helpful, because you're gonna eat your own dog food, as we said, and this is the best way to also understand what can bring value to others. If you can bring yourself value, you know that you will find other people in the same position. So the question I was asking was mainly about kind of a number perspective, how many people in the team right now, and what's kind of the current annual recurring revenue?
Yeah, so our team is about 25, which we are much more heavily built out, I would say, on the technical and the development side, between engineers and QA, and very robust, built out, and awesome team that we've sort of eventually arrived at. That's definitely been also over time. And then we have a fairly blended revenue model. We have, our current ARR includes the monthly subscriptions. We also have a digital wallet that we utilize. We also run what's considered a launch service on Amazon. So it's very blended, but we're in the 1.5 to 2 ARR for sort of the stable foundation, and that can fluctuate. So as an example, when there's a lot more seasonality with our wallet, where there's a lot more promotions and loyalty programs, we can run $500,000 to $1 million through that wallet, and then we realize incremental revenue through fees for brands that use that service. So it's sort of bittersweet, because it's semi predictable, but at the same time, because we can facilitate so much throughput, it's a really nice value add as part of our suite of tools.
Yeah, definitely. I'm guessing it's a cool boost to have, whenever you have the salary caps and everything, you can just check out how much you're spending and consider that everything that comes on top of it is just the extra boost that you're getting from extra revenue that you can charge. And what I'm curious also, because you were mentioning early on that you built a tool for your own needs, and at the same time you were kind of all having business on Amazon's already, so you were all Amazon sellers. What type of business was that? Did you kept the business while also building your own SaaS? How did the transition go in the early days?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's what I would also consider one of our competitive advantages, but it's not without its own challenges too, because it's such a unique time to own and run an Amazon FBA brand. I'm sure if you haven't seen what is coming into the space right now is this influx of interest and capital through these Amazon FBA aggregators. But the reason why they're coming into this space is because of the success and potential of these FBA brands. And so I do think that's been a big throughput, and a big part of our mission and vision is to be able to eat our own dog food of hey, what is going to excite us? What's going to give us a clear advantage? And then that gives that also delivers unique value to our users. And so that's really lent in a lot of cases when we look at our roadmap and our kind of our feature pipeline. It's led us in ways to where we have sort of pursued more of the blue ocean of what's unique, what can we sort of see that's out there that's missing, how can we have sort of a unique take. And for those that aren't familiar with Amazon FBA, it's a very I don't want to say volatile, but it's probably a good way of capturing the space. A good analogy, or it'd be kind of analogous to Facebook, where you have privacy changes and Facebook ads, I should say more specifically, where there is sudden shifts and then the market responds. And so Amazon FBA is very similar to that, where there will be data accessible, then it will be inaccessible, then there'll be terms or policy changes. And so that is sort of the, I would say, the bittersweet aspect of, we will take advantage of an innovation, or let's say even a hack, where our team has the understanding, has the know-how, will develop something really cool and unique. And then 6 months later, Amazon will say, "Oh, by the way, this is now inaccessible, and this has changed drastically." So you really have to have the stomach for creating and developing a solution in this space. But that also goes. This isn't unique necessarily, I would say, to us as a SaaS. It's really the entirety of the FBA category, and it's sort of it's just sort of a reality of it, I would say.
Yeah, I feel like every time you're building a business on top of a platform, you must face some risk. I mean, it's part of the deal. Like you're not in control of everything, but at the same time, it's also give you an edge because you also have like a specific community. It's more niche, so like your audience and who you're targeting. You mentioned that you were running your own kind of brand on Amazon before. Is this what helped you? I want to get into like the how to get started part, because a lot of our listeners are just getting started, and sometimes our question that we receive a lot is like, how do you get the money to get started? And you were mentioning that you had your own Amazon brand. Is it something you kept for a lot of time after you started Seller.Tools, or is it something that you kind of stopped and decided to go all in because you had saved enough money for, I don't know, a year or somewhere around that to basically like get enough money to get started?
Yeah, no, I started a brand really along the same time that Brendan was sort of my business partner, was developing what was the very rough but personal use tools that became Seller.Tools. Was the time I started my Amazon brand, which was in the health and beauty space, which is a very, very competitive category, and especially was around that time, which definitely served me well, because it required me to accelerate my knowledge and sort of advance my skills to be able to kind of cut through in a very saturated, very competitive, and very malicious. Again, I'm bringing up this thread of kind of the FBA nuances, but it's Amazon is a compare and contrast marketplace. You type in a keyword or phrase, you're very rarely the only option that's visible. You have to sort of cut through and win in the
it's a war.
Yes. So that was a great way to accelerate my knowledge. And I built that brand up to about 27 SKUs before I sold it about just over 2.5 years in. And which was great for me to then commit more of my focus to Seller.Tools at that point. I had sold that brand, moved on to doing some amount of consulting and advising for about 8 months, and then jumped fully into Seller.Tools because I was seeing what was coming together in terms of the initial the data that we were working at, especially at that point in time. This is where, if we look back 5 or 6 years, Seller.Tools has taken on a lot of different forms, where in those early days we were very much data focused, and then we moved on more to more launching ranking and review strategies. And now, by virtue of time, development, and focus, we've created this all-in-one suite. But yeah, that was sort of the inception. And I should note, around that time, both Tade and Brendan were also running their own brands. So this is where, again, for founder focus, we had to definitely manage, like, hey, he's running an 8-figure brand, I'm going through my 7-figure. Like we're going through, in many cases, our first legitimate robust brands, and also then thinking about exit strategy while also building this SaaS solution, and effectively managing all that activity.
Yeah, that sounds really intense. So did you all exited your business, or did they kept also like the brand they were building?
Yeah. So over that course of time, Brendan sold what was his flagship brand, which was in the supplements category, very similar to health and beauty. So again, we both had very
Competitive market, yeah.
yeah, very time and cost intensive. And so he realized his exit, which was a very sizable exit, which was great. And then ended up also starting another brand with his partner, who was his partner on the supplements brand, and in the fitness category. So he had a penchant for pain, because that's another one that's just super tough. But yeah, and then Tade is still actually running the brand that he had started from those early days. So that is a constant thread of sort of FBA. I had enough. I had enough pain, so I stepped away from active brand management after I sold my health and beauty brand.
So that's something I'm actually curious. Like there are two things I'm curious about. Actually, three things. The first thing is, whenever you build a brand, you mentioned like 27,000 SKUs. So SKUs, it's like what, the number of products or reference, or how exactly would you explain it?
Yeah, and it was 27 SKUs total that I had.
27. Okay. Okay, and basically, like, how much do you exit a brand on Amazon? Is it like a multiple from the EBITDA or the revenue? How exactly does it calculate?
Yeah, typically it'll be 3 to 5x is kind of the rule of thumb for an EBITDA multiple. Okay. At that point in time, there wasn't as many acquisitions taking place. Now it's definitely a different landscape with the aggregators and interests, where right now with supply chain issues and raw material shortages, running a physical product business and FBA business, if you're doing really well, and you can sort of you can thrive even in the midst of that circumstance, you can tend to look at a far more competitive multiple.
And what the other question I had is, you mentioned that those businesses, both you and your partners were running, were actually like really successful, 7 and 8 figure. I think it's quite a lot. So you were also using Seller.Tools at the time for your own other businesses. Something that's really important, when you get started with your SaaS company, is to try to get as much testimonials or use cases for your own website, so people can actually picture the success or the kind of success they can have. Was it something you implemented where you used your own brands as kind of like official customers of Seller.Tools and write use case around it? Or did you just say, okay, no, we have enough other customers we can focus on and we're going to go with them?
Yeah, we probably could have done a better job of that, honestly. We do still use some of our brands to mention today, because I mean it's a great example of one of the 8-figure brands that one of our team members run. We love to highlight their brand, because hey, if they're using Seller.Tools to manage their keywords, to find optimization potential, they're still using our suite of tools. Hey, that's a great way to say, this brand leverages our capabilities, and here's some of their results. So in the early days, we probably could have done a better job of turning that around, more case studies and testimonials. But it's really tricky. This community, it's unique in the sense that sometimes there's not an openness to share what works. It can sometimes be a little bit of
everyone wants to keep their secret sauce and kind of like, okay, it's our special hack or whatever, and we don't want to share it.
Exactly. Yeah, there is a lack of openness, which is really unfortunate. I used to surprise people when we go to events and masterminds and that kind of thing, and I would lead with it. I would just, this is my brand, this is what I sell, and there may have been things that worked against me, but there was also really big business opportunities that showed up because people said, "Oh, well, you run this brand, like you probably know what you're doing," and it actually led to more opportunities. So it's I guess just one of those.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. Like I think transparency builds a lot of trust with the people you meet. So obviously, like some people will try to take advantage, but I still do believe that it's the smallest percentage, and that people are quite happy, when you see that you are sharing something in being fully transparent, showing the flows, so showing the things that are also awesome. And I think like this is also why I'm starting this podcast, like to kind of share all these moments. I also like question myself when you started to say that you decided to sell the business, but another of your partner kept it. For us, I remember that we had this discussion with my co-founders actually, like okay, whenever can we actually start something on the side? How exactly do we want to be involved in the business, etc. And we decided that we had to be all in, all together, nothing on the side, or that if we do something on the side, it's actually part of the company and the money goes into the company. What's your has it been difficult for you guys like to manage? Because we obviously know that if you're running a SaaS business and on top of it you're also running an Amazon brand, your time is going to be split. It's not something you can fully automate or whatever. So you're going to be less involved, meaning that your shares might be impacted, etc. Like, how did you deal with that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think in hindsight, with the benefit of hindsight, I would definitely say it would have served us better to isolate more of our focus and really drill down on what we were building with Seller.Tools. Looking at both the competitive landscape, the larger opportunity. There was so much potential, kind of built up potential as this space, Amazon, FBA, all of the pieces that came together for what is now a massively thriving niche and community. And so, yeah, I think that's a very, very big lesson learned. But I think the unique aspect for me and our leadership team is that we're developing tools that help you automate an FBA business. We're running FBA businesses, and then we have a SaaS tool. And so we sort of have this weird interplay of like our tools help us save time, but then when you run a business, and I mean, this, there's the mental, there's the physical, there's everything that you put into it that it's hard to sort of decouple. And so I think that's something that for first-time founders or founders to be thinking about what that commitment level and some of those hard decisions and hard discussions have to look like. Because I do think that's true for us, is that we still took advantage of other opportunities, but and who knows what that would have looked like if we would have all just realized had just a clear path and a single focus, where we would be. I mean, obviously we're still doing great now and are really happy with the solutions that we provide. But I think your point is very valid of what potentially, if viewing things honestly, what could be possible with a more singular focus. Or I even like that idea of maybe like, if you have other things going on, if you're going to be part of this bigger, larger initiative that includes multiple parties, what you're working on may fold back in, whether it's the return, whether it's shares and equity, kind of looking at that more clearly.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, like that would be really tough for me to go to and work with or be like in a partnership with people who are running other businesses. I mean, if it's clear from the start, I think it makes sense. But to give you an example, I think we were close to 10 million in ARR with Lemlist when I started running masterclasses. So the masterclasses are saying that I created myself, it's only content, and I sell it through webinars. In the first webinar we launched, I think we made like 100K or something. And the question of where does the money go? It's like I created it, I built it, it's like the audience I have, etc. But for me, actually, I even didn't ask myself this question. It was for the company. So my two co-founders will also receive, like, this money would be on the bank account. It's not something that I'm going to get personally, because I'm feeling that my involvement is just with our company, and whatever we're doing on the side, it should also go all in, because we're being fully focused on our overall growth and it's part of a bigger plan. And I think that the slippery slope could be that, if you feel that someone is not as invested as before, you kind of get a lack of motivation and you don't want to get involved as much. Is that something you felt along the way at some point, having your other co-founders running brands and maybe you selling yours, or not at all?
Yeah, no, I think I would definitely say, and I mean, I think that comes from the dynamic of, for us, it was a leadership team of 3, is that happened and could happen because, when you think about how you break up, equity and compensation and commitment, the expectations game, it's one of those things where it can lead to and has very hard conversations, but I think that's what's so essential. I think, again, if I look back and I think, what have I learned and what lessons can I take? And we talk about this openly now. It's just, how do we align those expectations that much earlier and have those candid conversations? Because that expectations mismatch can lead the company down the wrong way. It can really frustrate, those people that are involved. And so, yeah, for us. And then I think it's also just a patience and understanding. I think, if we were running different businesses, I think even that would probably create another and unique dynamic. But because we're all in the FBA space and working with FBA brands, I think for me, I sort of had an understanding of, man, this is kind of a volatile, marketplace you're selling in. It's really tough. And so I tried to operate with that understanding of, okay, if this is going to pull away from your commitment to Seller.Tools, view it optimistically as temporary, but then have those conversations of, what I also expect too.
Okay. And what was like for you, because obviously you built a tool to help Amazon sellers. So how exactly did you acquire your first customers? What was the strategies that has been working well overall?
Yeah, in the very early days, it was extremely organic. So, I mean, when we were at events and masterminds, and between my team, the team at the time, we were able to onboard a lot of really great substantiated sellers fairly early on, with some of the things that we already had kind of day one. Which at that point in time was really data focused. We were tapping into Amazon search volume, so we could give data at the keyword level to sort of say, hey, these are more important keywords to go after. Think about using them in your optimization efforts in this fashion. And so it was very organic. It was kind of community first. We didn't have to do any, we didn't have to run any paid strategies or do much outreach. It was very organic.
And did you also build your own community, or was it mainly like, okay, I'm going to go to this, I don't know, like mastermind or Facebook groups and just try to connect with people as much as I can, so I can down the line, like explain what I'm doing, bring value, and potentially have them as customers? Or did you say, okay, we know that it's highly competitive, let's create our own community and group and start having more and more people join and try to build a strong brand for Seller.Tools?
Yeah, and in the fairly early days, we did put together and still run right now a Facebook group where we can more easily sort of engage with the community. And we've done some testing as well of beta features and dedicated Facebook groups. But that has been a good foundational part of our strategy as well, of just having a place where the community can kind of go have the open conversation, share releases. Any iterations, anything that we change to, that we can more easily voice that. It doesn't hurt when you can do that in 20 seconds, share that message and get that reach out there.
And as you grew, what did you kind of change or switch strategy or try different acquisition channels?
Yeah, we have. Some of the more tried and true methods have been a lot of our outreach to work with course and content creators. That tends to be a lot of ways that whether it's sort of the foundational knowledge or for first-time sellers and brands, that's where they seek out that foundational knowledge. So we've done a lot with partners and affiliates and other strategic partners, and that's been one of our most fruitful sort of acquisition strategies.
That's really interesting. I feel like in this field, especially with Amazon buyers, there is a lot of, affiliation is really part of the game, because on their end, they also do it a lot to promote their product with bloggers, influencers, etc. So can you walk us through a little bit about kind of the process? So where do you find these courses? How do you get in touch with the person owning the course? And what type of deal do you make with them so they recommend your tool and in exchange get potentially rev share or just for free?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, thinking about it now, I feel like we're so ingrained in the community that we don't do a lot of, let's say, cold outreach or having to spend too much time on LinkedIn or elsewhere. Event attendance is huge. Event speaking has been huge for us to create a foothold, I would say, in the community. And then for us, it's making sure that we're just engaging with those other speakers, of other sponsors, and taking part in those events. And so, when we approach them, we really try to figure out ways that we can add value to the community. So we'll do blog shares, we'll do shared webinars. We'll try to lead with that first instead of a cold pitch of, hey, we'll give you, here's a 20% discount.
Okay.
We try not to, we play the longer game when we have those types of conversations. Absolutely still do that to where we want to make sure that the value that they're sharing is quite obvious and it's compelling, what we feature and release. But one of the other really big things that's unique about us is that both our platform and our Chrome extension, you can use features completely for free. And so we almost kind of remove the financial aspect out of the equation, because as an example, with our Chrome extension, it has features you can't get anywhere else. And because we're offering that for free, the barrier is so low that person that, hey, I'm cobbling money together, I'm thinking about starting an FBA brand, we can capture them, get them excited, get them interested, deliver them some value. And if that's shared through, of course, our content creator, they're more apt to continue to consume their content, and we can really cultivate from there, kind of building up what are the solutions that you need. Or if you find out through our Chrome extension, hey, you're missing this, well, then the app and the platform can help you address that issue.
That's really interesting. So if I understand correctly, you try to keep what you started with as a strategy, which is meeting your customers, so spending time with them, whether it's at conferences, masterminds, Facebook groups. Once you find people who are actually running courses, you try to build relationships. So organize webinars, do events together, try to bring as much value as possible. And down the line, because you have like a freemium product, you try to basically capture their audience at the same time through the freemium. So down the line, you might be able to upsell them to a paid plan. Is that correct? Or
yeah, no, and I think that's a good way of thinking about the funnel too, is that you have the awareness through that content collaboration. Then we have further down, as we're thinking about conversion readiness, we have free features to where, unless you just can't find the 10 minutes, you have really no excuse to at least not try it out and see what we're able to do. And then because of, we try to do other little CRO adjustments and make sure that we're ready to realize that lead is a conversion. But that's really the flow, the ideal flow for lead gen.
And I'm curious about the numbers, because for a lot of freemium model, I was chatting with, maybe you know him, Tim Solo from Ahrefs. So they do a lot of SEO, $100 million plus dollar ARR company. So, what they've been doing is that essentially their free tools is really to get more backlinks, gain in domain authority, etc. But the upsell is not that great. So usually you have just people coming for the free things, and because it's free, they don't always see the value, and down the line, they don't want to upsell. Do you find it useful as an upsell or more as a brand strategy?
I would say the way that we have it as it stands today is it really serves as a solid upsell.
Okay.
Because at the Chrome extension example, we will literally tell you where, hey, these keywords, you're not using enough keywords, you're not performing well for those keywords. We can identify that, and then the platform will help you, hey, do you need to run new keyword research? Do you need to identify top competitors? So it becomes very cyclical. And that's sort of the intention of the workflow, is what's missing, then how do you address it? And then it becomes a bi-weekly check of making sure your performance is optimal.
Nice. And something else I'm curious is you are targeting so brands on Amazon, which means that they are SMBs. We know that a lot of brands on Amazon and also SMBs or startups run out of business. So I'm curious, like, is churn an issue for you as most people targeting SMBs, or have you found ways to kind of like reduce it or focus on a segment that kind of like don't churn because it's those evergreen Amazon businesses that are out there?
Yeah, and I mean our user base is extremely varied because we have that, first time business owner looking at the FBA opportunity, and then they're wanting to use our tools for an advantage. And then we have the enterprise clients, the aggregators who are also using tools, and they're managing, 4 brands, and they're thinking, okay, how do you automate these brands that we're trying to scale to such heights? So we have a very, very scattered customer segments. And in all honesty, who we are in the process of serving better is that brand new customer and user. In the competitive landscape right now for Amazon SaaS, this is actually where a lot of tools do a really great job. And what I call step one, they can do step one really well. They can help you find a product opportunity, be able to point at what product you're going to source. But where we do really well and where they tend to fall short is steps 2 through 10. Is that, okay, now that I have a product, what am I doing unique or exceptional to ensure it's optimized, ensure it's visible, drive ranking, capture more reviews? And that's really where our skill set lies. But there is this dynamic of once you've earned a customer at step 1, they're indoctrinated. Very hard to pull them away from other solutions or tools in that sense. So with that dynamic, and to your question in terms of churn, I don't think we see it in the same way that those step 1 type solutions do, just by virtue of, if somebody's running their business but just clicking a few buttons, that's not really building and starting a business. That's sort of vetting a potential business opportunity. So for us, it's manageable churn, but it's also the dynamic of, as you get further down that segment, you do still have brands that are struggling, especially with the things that we're seeing today of supply chain issues, raw material shortages, Amazon inventory limits. I mean, brands are really coming up against a lot of challenges to where then they look at, what are my expenses? What are my overhead? What can I pause? What can I halt? And sometimes, SaaS solutions do. We'll get that. We'll see that in our churn insights as well. Of, I'm going to pause until start of the year. Give me another month. So, we sometimes fall prey to just the macro trends when it comes to our users.
And you it's interesting because you know very well like the overall industry and the brands, and it's sometimes we see like founders really focusing slowly on their features and not really on the industry or the people they are serving, which is definitely not your case. And it comes down to another question I have. You were mentioning the supply chain issue we see in the US. So I'm curious, is it something that you would write content about so your users could find like valuable information into it? And even if it's not related to your product directly, at least they see you or as an expert, as someone they can trust. Is it a strategy that you've done on other topics that are not like directly related to your business, maybe more top-up funnel, but that would interest your audience?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And we do try to be mindful of that anytime we engage partners for content of what's really timely. What challenges are our brands facing right now that we can really turn around the most relevant piece of content. And so that is a big one, is that now, with supply chain, brands thinking about global expansion. So they're trying to broaden their footprint, how they can, impact other marketplaces. So that is a big part of what feeds into what our funnel, the subject matter and the content actually looks like.
Awesome. And to go back, because we started talking a bit about churn, and when comes churn, usually comes like all the ups and downs of a business, whether it's with your co-founders or with the business itself. What would you say were the like top 3 hardest moments you faced in the last years?
Oh yeah, this is a great question. I would say as a mainstay challenge, something that's pretty evergreen is Amazon changes, because our you can see where our business has changed right alongside that from our feature set to, as we touched on, content. So like what our team focuses on to deliver to the community. So I would say that has been huge. Oh man.
Did you ever feel like you would run out of business based on one of Amazon changes, or you always found the solution to keep going?
I think our team has always done a great job of being very resourceful. And I think not only in terms of just that as a skill of being able to see, okay, the table has changed. How are we going to pivot from this? So, and the ability and willingness to do that. But then I think the sophistication of knowing this space had served us as well. Of like, oh, well, if this isn't going to be an option, if all of a sudden, we've been utilizing Amazon search volume and now that's gone. Okay, well, what is that ultimately? What can that look like? How can we still capture what demand is in the marketplace at the keyword level? Just as a specific example. So yeah, it's not to say that we don't feel like everything's on fire and things have changed drastically all of a sudden. But I think it's a credit to the team to be able to take that information and say, okay, well then what do we want to do next? How can we sort of pivot from here?
Okay. And any other challenges that you faced, whether it's with your co-founders or with the team?
Yeah, I mean, I think the prior point of the focus of leadership is definitely something that can continue to creep up because, especially for us, to be specific to our case, there is still a really great opportunity if you know what you're doing in the FBA space and you can build a substantial brand and you have a moat, you're taking advantage of some amount of blue ocean in your strategy. There are excellent opportunities and great returns to be realized. So you sort of have to turn down a pretty good thing to be able to rededicate and refocus in our case for a SaaS. So I wouldn't say that's a challenge. It's more of a
continuous discussion and
yeah. It's a realignment, I would say, because those two things, when it happens at the same time, where something maybe only impacts the SaaS side, and then you see the potential of the brand building side, it looks a lot more compelling as an alternative or another option. So yeah, I would say that as well. And then maybe the last thing is really just team building, of being able to scale the team and the resources based on what priorities look like, what the vision looks like, and then the practical implementation. You can see where none of these things are isolated. It's sort of like this constant interplay of, okay, Amazon's changed. Well, then this expertise is more fruitful. It's maybe not as much of a data orientation. It's more of a, optimization type of strategy. So I would probably put those as the big three. We'll still call them challenges, the things to kind of constantly look at and address.
And did you feel like, to me personally, as a first time SaaS founder, it was very challenging, to hire the right team and make sure that people, fit in the long run. Especially, when you get started, it's difficult to attract talent in the early days. So you try to get people, who are extremely motivated, who have a lot of grind, and then that you can help leveling up. How was your hiring strategy? Did you struggle to find the right ones? Did you have to fire people, and how did it go?
Yeah, no, I think we did sort of have to feel our way through what worked for us in terms of hiring. Fortunately, we didn't have to. Other than a few consultants, we didn't have to fire anybody that made up the team. So we avoided some of the bigger missteps.
Nice.
But what was crucial for us,
I didn't.
Yeah, good. That's never fun. That's never a fun.
No, it's always a hard time.
Yeah. So I mean, we were fortunate in that sense of, being able to in the early enough phases, and this is the core team members that are still with us to this day, which I think for a SaaS and a technical solution, I consider that a big win, is because for the same reason, there's plenty of opportunity out there for really great people to find new opportunities. And so with them sticking with us And I can think of team members that were sort of like the big, we'll call them force multipliers. Somebody's really great, that really fits the culture, that drives the culture, that has true ownership of what they are, what they're doing, and how they're impacting the business. And then letting them sort of be the centerpiece from which the sort of the spokes come about, and how we build out the team. That was hugely advantageous for us. So that's been a little bit of our stories. Really strong core team, really key specific hires, and then having them drive and their voice and in many ways their leadership mold more of the team, more of the processes, the SOPs, and real ownership there.
Yeah, I feel like you've managed, but I'm guessing you had a few more experience, in hiring like people with maybe like a bit more experience that could become like, as you said, driving force or A players. And I think it's the smartest move. If I had like to redo things, I think I would hire like people who have a bit more experience in the early days, because it's true that one person can change a lot of things. And if you have the right team, like it changes everything. Like for us, I would say that one of the struggle down the line was we hired also too fast. So we had a really, really strong core team, and we hired people because like with the hyper growth, you're like, okay, we need to hire more. And down the line, you realize that actually for SaaS businesses, not always the case. You don't have to hire as many people as you're scaling. And that the people do really matter. And you talked about culture, so I'm curious to know also like how exactly do you align your hiring process with your existing culture?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it really informs what the vetting process looks like for not only defining what people and roles. What roles need to be effectively filled. So we make sure that there is sort of a alignment and the puzzle pieces fitting. But then the ownership through that process, and making sure that at least for us as a leadership, that we're engaged, where there is, additional interviews. We want to meet the people. We want to find out a little bit more about them, and not just simply look at a skill set necessarily. So, we're a big fan, and this is, post kind of a more post-COVID environment. But we're a big fan of having our team, go out to dinners, go meet these people and spend some time with them before we make that commitment and they make that investment in joining us as a team. And so fortunately, our team is now able to start meeting more in person. We actually just had a big event about 2 weeks ago, nice. Getting them together. Yeah. And we're looking forward to more of that. That's one of the tricky things of, building culture in a purely remote and now sort of, I'll call it just more post-pandemic environment, but where when you lose that human to human contact, or it's not as easy, that, over communicating and figuring out ways to add some personality and add a little bit of fun to what you're doing is huge for even the day to day. When people are just showing up and ready to do their work.
So, if I understand correctly, you're all in the same city right now, or did people like kind of move around with COVID?
Yeah, so we're pretty decentralized at today. Because myself, I'm situated in Orlando, Florida, fully remote, and I've got one business partner in Puerto Rico. Another is in Slovenia, where a bulk of our development team is located. So he's there with them on site. We have an office in Ljubljana.
Nice.
So a bulk of our team is there, and then we've got folks in California, Philippines, a little bit all over the world, and a remote team. So that's why it was really good to get them together to spend a little time.
Yeah, that's also something we try to do at least twice a year, because we have people, like we have an office in Paris, but we have like people a bit like everywhere. We've also used a virtual office. It's called Lemverse, which is basically like during the day we're all there. It looks like a Pokemon character, and you can move around in the office and go have a chat with people through videos. It's quite cool. It's not as good, I would say, as being in the office, but you kind of have the same vibe.
No, that sounds awesome.
And did you face like other like kind of challenges with your co-founders down the line, apart from potentially like this I would say like alignment on focus? Was it difficult for you to kind of set the vision for the company and the milestones to reach?
Yeah, I think over time, a few things that we learned was really defining what our strengths were, to more clearly also define our roles. In the early days, it was, we're sellers, we know our stuff. Like we're just creating things that we know we want, and in part, then the community is going to just embrace it, which was true. But then, as you get 2, 3, 4, 5 years into the business, and you develop more robust tools that need more management and oversight, it then becomes a question of, okay, whose efforts, how can we make your efforts as fruitful as possible, and do so by segmenting and clarifying some of your roles. And so, for me, I really oversee a lot of the operational and marketing side of things. And it was also looking at Brennan, our co-founder, who really, I would say is the de facto CEO. In all honesty, we sort of run by committee across the three of us. And for what he was sort of overseeing, it made a lot of sense to somebody who's very technically sophisticated. He's building a second 8-figure brand, absolutely knows the space, understands exactly what he wants and would want in his own businesses, of letting him be able to really drive a lot of the really the both the UX and the wireframing and the ideation, and saying, okay, wouldn't it be cool if, and kind of giving him a pen and pad to really drive what that can look like. And that really then informs, and we have a workflow for this in terms of some of the tools we use and how it ends up in Jira and some of our other tools. But that wasn't day one. Day one it wasn't so clear of like, we know who's driving some of the ideation and the brainstorming, who's then focusing on the development. Do we have a clear sort of product life cycle? And so I think that's a really interesting dynamic that I think in some ways has to happen a little bit over time, because I can see how it served us. But I would also say if you can sort of sort out where do your skills create the biggest impact, if there's some ambiguity, as it was with our case, we just were sellers that knew the space, of really trying to be cognizant of that as things move forward in the business.
That's awesome. Yeah, I do agree with you. I think like some things need to take time. Like it can't be determined, and it might evolve over time also. Like you never know how people can or might discover like a new passion or something they excel at, and you want them to also focusing on that part. So I think it's a constant communication that helps the founding team to kind of evolve and also set the new dimension and the foundation for the business. I want to be cautious of your time, so we're going to end up with kind of like 3 flash questions. The first one is, what's your favorite book or podcast?
Oh man, yeah, this question. I have to be honest. My favorite podcast right now, it's actually a cryptocurrency focused podcast called Bankless.
Nice. I want to check it out. I'm super interested in crypto right now.
Yes. Yeah. And I think, in the context of our topic, I think there's so many smart, innovative people looking at really unique solutions that there's a ton to learn from that, to where you don't have to just think, it's the crypto opportunity. But I think of that for first time founders, of like, there's a lot of people doing things that were unthinkable, that are truly unique and fresh ideas. And I think there's so much that you can pull from that. But that's definitely one I've been enjoying.
Nice. Can you get us the name again?
It's a Bankless.
Bankless. Okay, cool. I'll definitely check this out. Who's your favorite bootstrap founder and why?
I would have to go with the guys at Basecamp, Jason Fried and DHH. Those are probably my favorite And I would probably bring this back in terms of favorite book. Rework is definitely my favorite book. It's one I come back to a lot. It's just unconventional, kind of outside the box thinking when it comes to work and thought process and philosophy. But I think they constantly share, if I keep a kind of a tabs on what he shares via LinkedIn, just sort of helps you to sort of shake up some of the mental minutia. If you think things have to be done this way, or this is how it's always been done, I think they do a great job of doing the opposite of that.
Yeah, I think as we say that at Heinemeier, it's do things that you shouldn't.
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
And I'm actually curious. I know I said like 3 flash questions, but you mentioned, like there were tons of new VC money coming in on Amazon brand. Is it something that you're considering also for the future, like to maybe like raise, or are you like just a hardcore bootstrapper that want to keep it that way for the next 10 years?
We'll have to see. I think we're having, I would say, more interesting conversations, because I think it would be, I think it's important in our space to entertain larger conversations and be willing to kind of collaborate. So that's one of the unique folds for us right now. And I think, I think there's just so much possibility. There's a lot of hardship, a lot of challenges, but like that's such
some cool opportunities.
Exactly. Yeah.
And the final flash questions to end up on time. What's your favorite occupation or thing to do in order to regain motivation and energy during hard times?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I really like to step away and do something that is just completely separate from work. I like to play guitar. I like to put pen to pad. I like to do things that are sort of technically removed, get away from screens a little bit, and that lets me sort of free up my mind a little bit to not overly stress or ruminate on the day to day. So it's nothing complicated, but I think we tend to be so something I reflect on a lot. We're so input driven, whether it's listening to music or listening to podcasts or viewing screens or watching TV, that I think that stepping away can
free your brain.
Exactly. Free up the stimulation a little bit, and then it's that whole idea and that adage of you have the best ideas in the shower, and I think that's not only true. That's something we sort of have to reflect on. Why is that? Why is it when I'm not connected and stimulated that I have my best ideas?
That's a really good question and good final words. Thanks a lot, Troy, for really like sharing with us all your learnings and stories along the way. If people want to get in touch or follow your journey, where can they go?
Yeah, absolutely. So feel free to find me and the team. We're at Seller.Tools, where you can find our website and our app, and then reach out to us at hello@Seller.Tools. Would love to hear from you. If you have any questions or ways we can support you, let us know.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Troy. Have an amazing day. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Well, thanks, Troy. I think it was a really cool chat. I appreciate the fact that you were like really transparent. I think it's going to be super beneficial for our audience.
Thank you for listening to the Bootstrap Stories, the only podcast where bootstrap entrepreneurs share their journey in all transparency. If you enjoyed this episode, don't hesitate to leave us a review. And in case you want to see the interview, all episodes are live on the Guillaume Moubesh YouTube channel. Check out the link in the description and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Have an amazing day, and make sure to also join us in our amazing Bootstrap community, where we all helped each other to become successful and grow a profitable business. Take care and talk to you soon.